Krishna.
Okay, thank you for Hare Krishna. My respectful obeisances to the devotees here. Vanchaka Patribhyascha Kripa I'm very honored to know the devotees at the Atma Lounge, and I know a few of the devotees here who are online as well, and I'm very privileged to be able to serve you in any way, what to speak of, comment on Srila Prabhupada's books. So I'll try and serve you nicely today. I told Priya Prabhu to censor me if I say anything stupid. So as Priya Prabhu said, the topic for today is simple living and high thinking. And we're going to read from Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, text number 14. So unfortunately, in the world that we're living in now, it's not simple living, high thinking. So I'm sitting here with a mobile phone on top of a dehumidifier with my laptop next to me, from which I'm going to be reading. But what to do? This is Yukta Vairagya in Kali Yuga. So I'll read the verse. This is 3:14. Anad bhavanti bhutani parajanyad anasambhavaha yagyad bhavati parajanyo yagya karma samudbhavaha. Translation. All living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya, sacrifice, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. Purport. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great commentator on the Bhagavad Gita, writes as follows: Ya indra yangataya vashtishtam yagyam sarveshwaram vishnam abhyacharya tatchesham ashnanti tena taddeha sampadayanti te santa sarveshwarasya yagya purushasya bhakta sarvakil bishai anadi kala vivridhaya atmanubhava pratibandhakaya Nikilai Papa Vimuchate. The Supreme Lord, who is known as the Yagya Purusha, or the personal beneficiary of all sacrifices, is the master of all the demigods, who serve him as the different limbs of the body serve the whole. Demigods like Indra, Chandra, and Varuna are appointed officers who manage material affairs, and the Vedas direct sacrifices to satisfy these demigods, so that they may be pleased to supply air, light, and water sufficiently to produce food grains. When Lord Krishna is worshipped, the demigods who are different limbs of the Lord are also automatically worshipped. Therefore, there is no separate need to worship the demigods. For this reason, the devotees of the Lord who are in Krishna consciousness offer food to Krishna and then eat, a process which nourishes the body spiritually. By such action, not only are past sinful reactions in the body vanquished, but the body becomes immunized to all contamination of material nature. When there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protects a person from the attack of such an epidemic. Similarly, food offered to Lord Vishnu and then taken by us makes us sufficiently resistant to material affection, and one who is accustomed to this practice is called a devotee of the Lord. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness who eats only food offered to Krishna can counteract all reactions to past material infections, which are impediments to the progress of self-realization. On the other hand, one who does not do so continues to increase the volume of sinful action, and this prepares the next body to resemble hogs and dogs, to suffer the resultant reactions of all sins. The material world is full of contaminations, and one who is immunized by accepting prasadam of the Lord, food offered to Vishnu, is saved from the attack, whereas one who does not do so becomes subjected to contamination. Food grains or vegetables are factually eatables. The human being eats different kinds of food grains, vegetables, fruits, etc., and the animals eat the refuse of the food grains and vegetables, grass, plants, etc. Human beings who are accustomed to eating meat and flesh must also depend on the production of vegetation in order to eat the animals. Therefore, ultimately, we have to depend on the production of the field and not on the production of big factories. The field production is due to sufficient rain from the sky, and such rains are controlled by demigods like Indra, sun, moon, etc., and they are all servants of the Lord. The Lord can be satisfied by sacrifices, Therefore, one who cannot perform them will find himself in scarcity. That is the law of nature. Yajna, specifically the Sangatang Yajna prescribed for this age, must therefore be performed to save us at least from scarcity of food supply. I'll read the verse one more time. Anatpavanti bhutani parjanyad anasambhavaha yagyad pavati parjanyo yagyakarma samudbhavaha. All living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Om Gyanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramilikam Jayana Tatmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Nam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishta Bhutale Shmati Shri Ram Swami Tinamane. So, you must have noticed in this purport how relevant this is in today's world. Prabhupada actually says that just as one is, when there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protect the person from the attack of such an epidemic. And then goes on in the last paragraph to say that one becomes immunized from the attack of the material nature by taking prasadam. So that's the good news, that whether you decide to take the vaccine, whichever one it is, Pfizer or biotech, whatever it is, then if you just take Krishna prasadam, then you're vaccinated against the attack of the material energy. And this is Shastra's take on our material disease that we're struggling with at the moment. This is Srila Prabhupada's explanation of how to remain free and remain aloof from the contamination of the material world. And so relevant in today's times. I was just thinking now when we rushed home from the temple, we were just there half an hour ago. Ironic these days that to give class you have to go away from the temple as opposed to come to the temple. But that's how it works in modern times. I was just thinking that they're going to announce tomorrow what's going to happen with the sanctions, what's going to happen with the lockdown. Will we be able to look at one another? We'll be able to leave our houses. We'll be able to, I don't know, whatever it may be, walk in the park or go to the shops. But it's all based on ignorance. It's all based on a total lack of understanding. Why is this thing happening? As Srila Prabhupada gives the example of blowing on a boil. If you have a boil on your body, the way that it needs to be dealt with is to be cut off. But Srila Prabhupada says that if you just blow on it, it's not going to solve the problem at all. It's just dealing with the symptoms. And this is what happens in the material world, that we don't know how to deal with the problems that are confronting us every day. A similar example that Prabhupada gives is having an itch. So if you have an itch and you itch it, for the next few seconds, it feels better. But what it actually does is it agitates that problem that you have and makes it worse. So at the moment, we're all locked down, locked up, separated, masked, possibly soon to be vaccinated, because they're dealing with the symptoms. There are diseases, there is unease, there's a pandemic going around the world. And what is the cause of this pandemic? The cause is the sinful life that most people are living around the world. And Srila Prabhupada gives the solution here in his purport and explains that if you want to be nourished on all platforms, if you want to be happy, if you want to live a comfortable life and ultimately go back to Godhead, then it all depends on performance of yajna. it all depends on performance of sacrifice. And the sacrifice in this age is Nama Sankirtan, or chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So if Boris and Matt Hancock would prescribe the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day, it would solve a lot more problems than it would everything else that they're trying to figure out to deal with these problems. But we know that there are reasons why people don't want to chant Hare Krishna. There are reasons why people don't want to worship God. We decided to come to this material world, so we can't blame anybody else. We're here because that was our decision. But we have to deal with the madness of this material world while we're here. And it's difficult to be Krishna conscious in this world because we're in such a crazy situation. Srila Prabhupada says in Nectar of Instruction that we can see in the material world that nothing is done very sanely. That if you just look at the world around us, then it doesn't make much sense, especially if you look at the economic system of the world. If you just look at banking, or you just look at, getting into debt, mortgages, whatever it may be, it's just crazy, just the way that the world works. And just everything about the world is crazy. How people get their happiness, how people take intoxication, or my spiritual master has said a few times how people, I think it comes from Prabhupada also, that people are commuting to work and they're working to get money to pay for their car so that they can commute to work. So you're not really getting anywhere. It's just like the little ring that the gerbil is on, just, the rat race. We're just running for no reason in the same place. But the amazing thing about Krishna consciousness is it gives us all of the solutions. Actually, it gives us all of the answers to our problems, and our problems are multifarious and numerous, and proliferant in this Kali Yuga. So we know that the core of our movement of ISKCON, of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, of Hare Krishna movement is the chanting of the holy name. It's Nam Sankirtan, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned. That is the yagya for this age. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Getari Atid Anyata. So there's no other way for achieving perfection in this age other than chanting the holy name of the Lord. That is the process, and it's unavoidable. But there are so many things also that support that chanting. It's a fact that if one is advanced enough, you don't need anything else. You can just chant the holy name all day, every day. I was just hearing a class by my spiritual master this morning, and he was speaking about, who was he speaking about? Madhavendra Puri. That Madhavendra Puri wouldn't sleep, and he would barely eat as well, just like Raghunath Das Goswami. And so Madhavendra Puri he was in ecstasy all of the time, chanting the holy name. And sometimes he would just snooze off for a few minutes, and then he'd wake up and then carry on chanting. So if you're on a very high platform, if you're on the perfected platform, you don't need anything. You can just chant the holy names and fall asleep for 5 minutes, wake up again and start chanting again. And we see with these devotees like Madhavendra Puri, Krishna would come and feed him personally because he was so Krishna conscious. But unfortunately, when we join the movement in this age, we're not usually able to reach that kind of a platform. May not be able to do so after a few lifetimes either. So there is a system for us how we can support ourselves, how we can deal with our mental, emotional, intellectual, physical needs as well, whilst at the same time chanting Hare Krishna. So that core of our movement is called Bhagavad Vidhi, hearing and chanting about Krishna, Shravanam Kirtanam. And to support that, we have Pancharatrika Vidhi, which is worshipping the deity and the different rules and regulations that are associated with that. Because if you're not clean, if you're not regulated, if you're not in the mode of goodness, if you're not getting up early in the morning, if you're not peaceful, and you're not pure in heart, then it's very difficult to chant and to maintain spiritual life and follow the rules and regulations that we follow, and to remember Krishna, to be Krishna conscious, because we're in the lower modes of material nature. So Pancharatrika Vidhi helps with that. It also gives us a practical hold on who Krishna is, because we can be chanting Hare Krishna, and what often happens, at least with myself, is you're chanting Hare Krishna and you're thinking about something else. You may be sitting there, sit down, early morning, chanting Hare Krishna, still every few seconds your mind will go phew, off into, you know, somewhere 1,000 miles away or something totally different. You bring it back and then another few seconds later it goes somewhere else. So Pancharatrika Vidhi helps to keep us clean, helps to keep us pure, helps to keep us regulated, gives us a box for the mind to try and control it and slow it down and purify it. And then Krishna is so merciful that he doesn't just give us the holy name, which is enough to achieve perfection. He doesn't just give us the deity and the rules and regulations of deity worship and of cultured life, but he also gives us a social system called Varnashram Dharma. So you may think that, yeah, well, you know, I'm into Krishna consciousness, I love Krishna consciousness, I'm going to give everything up, I'm going to go and join the Atma Lounge, I'm going to move in. Maybe a problem because they have one lady who's moved in there already, Jasmine. I don't think there's a brahmachari ashram, but I'm sure Priyak and the Shamagoi will have a bustling brahmachari ashram also in the future, wherever that may be. But just say you want to give up everything, you want to join the temple, you want to surrender everything to Krishna, then that's wonderful. That's what we should do. But as I think Priyakam Prabhu has experienced, I've experienced as well, that we do this, Parisuki Krishna Prabhu there as well, also in the Atma Lounge, that we do this, but how long can you maintain that for? Like for instance, I joined the temple in Soho when I was 20, and I lived in the temple as a monk for 7 or 8 years. But then I came to the point where I love Krishna consciousness, I want to be Krishna conscious, I want to practice that, but I just couldn't fit within that ashram anymore. I just needed some more independence. And my spiritual master helped me to understand at that time that, yeah, you need to move on to the next ashram, you need to move on to the grihasta ashram, then you can fulfill your desires, your material desires, whatever they may be. They may not be gross, that I just want to, you know, get married. Maybe there's things that you want to do that don't fit within that brahmachari ashram. And then it's a very natural transition for people. So Varnashram gives us the facilities of 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams. So the 4 Varnas are Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Brahmana. And the 4 ashrams are Brahmacharya, Grihasta, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. And the normal transition in life is to go from Brahmachari to Grihasta to Vanaprastha to Sannyas. There may be some rare souls that can stay in the Brahmachari ashram, stay celibate monks, and just stay out of trouble, avoid having to deal with money, avoid, you know, material things as much as they can, and just stay Brahmachari or take sannyas. But the vast majority of devotees will find that, no, I need some independence, I need probably a relationship with the opposite sex, I need, you know, some control over my life, I want to make my own decisions. And Varna ashram is there, and Grihasta ashram is there to help devotees to purify themselves of their material desires, and to go through those attachments and to get freed from them. And the problem is, though, that I've seen, is that in ISKCON, in the Hare Krishna movement, we're very good at having temples, we're very good at preaching, we're very good at distributing books, we're very good at cooking tasty prasadam, as Shamagori is expert, Paramananda Prabhu also backing her up, amazing prasadam that they're producing every week. But the more rounded, holistic society of how we're going to bring up Krishna conscious children, where we're going to send them for their education, how devotees are going to maintain themselves, how we're going to look after older generation, where are they going to, leave their bodies, this whole bigger picture of a Krishna conscious society, that is still quite absent in ISKCON. And it's becoming more and more important, because I've seen so many devotees who have joined the temple, fired up for a few years, 5 or 10 years, then they have to make the leap to being outside, and then they just get slaughtered basically by the material energy. They have to spend their time working, they get married, which can be extremely challenging, and then they're just battered by the material energy, and we're lucky if they remain devotees. So this concept of simple living, high thinking that Srila Prabhupada gave us, it especially relates to farm projects that Srila Prabhupada also started. And of course, he gave us these as well. The kind of original farm project that he gave us was New Vrindavan in America, which kind of set everything up. It showed us what that meant. It meant having land, it meant having cows, it meant having children being educated in a gurukul. It meant a whole holistic society for devotees. And we have many of these communities around the world in ISKCON. Not all are greatly successful. I was fortunate enough to live in a very successful community in New Vajradam in Hungary for 10 years. And it was such a wonderful experience that I want other devotees in the UK to have that experience. I feel great compassion for devotees in the UK who are struggling to pay the bills, who are struggling to make their children Krishna conscious, who are struggling to maintain a happy grihasta ashram, because we're not providing that structure for devotees. And this is what Prabhupada wanted. Srila Prabhupada said that half of his mission is Varnashram Dharma, and that needs to be established. And of course, Varnashram Dharma isn't just within farm communities. Varnashram Dharma is there everywhere. If you just look at our society, we have policemen, we have bricklayers, we have businessmen, we have farmers. They're all fitting into different varnas. And we have, well, back to Vijayapurna Maharaj was saying, he was saying in general, we have one varna and one ashram in Kali Yuga, and that's the Shudra varna and the grihasta ashram. But it's all mixed, but they are there. But the grihasta ashram is much more prominent than any of the other ashrams in this Kali Yuga. But if you have land and you can get animals and you can develop some independence from modern society, then you can begin to develop that pure Daivi Varnashram used in the service of Krishna to a higher degree and in a more pure form. So this is something that I think is very needed. It's something that is best if it comes from the top down. It comes from the leaders in our society, and it is slowly. I mean, in the UK, we are lucky. We have Karuna Bhavan. Priyakam Prabhu, did you join in Karuna Bhavan?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, so Priyakam Prabhu joined there. So that is, they have land. They have alpacas. Although they don't have any cows, although I know they want to get some cows. But also in Wales, I know they want to have a farm project. The manor is like a farm project. They have cows and they have land. And ISKCON London, they also want to have a farm project. we want to have a farm project. Priyakunj Prabhu, Atma Lounge want to have a farm project. So there are various projects that are designed to fulfill this need for devotees, because otherwise it's like we're holding onto a boat which is sinking. We can see that the so-called shelter of our society, our materialistic society, is doomed. They're living such an impious life. People are, eating meat, drinking alcohol, taking drugs, having illicit sex. I mean, if they were only doing that, that would be pretty good. There's one story, the Prabhupada, when he came back to England for the last time in 1977, and he went to the manor. I can't remember who was telling the story, but he was saying that Prabhupada was so appreciative of the West. He was saying, in India, they never helped me. He said, they just always presented so many problems for me. He said, in the West, they've always given me so much help, so much support. And he said, it's so nice in the Western countries, so organized, so clean. You're all so nice, you young boys and girls. And he said, if only they wouldn't eat the cow. He said, if they just wouldn't eat the cow, it would be so good over here. So, but at the present time, I mean, it's getting worse and worse. Trans this, trans that, anyway, I don't want to get into all of the sinful things that people are doing these days, or the difficult issues that people have to go through because we all have various struggles that we're going through, and it's not, we're not here to condemn anybody, but in Krishna consciousness we do also have clear values that we uphold. But if we're remaining as dependent on a materialistic society which is propagating so many sinful activities, then we're just going to go down with everybody else. So unless devotees manage to create some kind of independence, then what will be our fate? What will be the fate of ISKCON unless we actually have our own land, unless we grow our own food, unless we are able to maintain ourselves, at least in that way, at least in food and buildings and having our own water supply, then everything is going to become destroyed because people are living such an impious life. Although Prabhupada did say also that he said that in this age it's going to get worse and worse. He said there's going to be great suffering in the future for everybody on this planet because of Kali Yuga and the degradation of society. He said, but the devotees will be protected by the holy name. So that's also interesting, that even if we're not able to get things together, even if we're not able to establish that 50% that Prabhupada indicated, the holy name will help us somehow or another. So at least let's do that. At least let's chant the holy name. But in a better situation than if we're chanting Hare Krishna, that will give us intelligence also of the best things to do. Srila Prabhupada says that if one is not able to access an acharya or a spiritual teacher, he says this, I think it's in for the purport of Tesham Satata Yuktanam in the Bhagavad Gita, one of the Chatur Shloki of the Bhagavad Gita, one of the 4 seed verses. It says if one is not able to access an acharya or a spiritual master, then Krishna will guide you from within. He'll give you intelligence from within. And he says that, but you have to be intelligent enough to be able to follow that guidance that Krishna is giving you. So if we are chanting nicely, if we are chanting attentively, then Krishna will guide us how to spread this Krishna consciousness movement in the best way. And it's very interesting, actually, being down here in Kent, speaking about such things. I've met so many people, so many non-devotees who are on a very similar wavelength. Many people are into simple living. Many people are into alternative housing. Many people are into living in a much more environmental way. Actually, much more so than many of us as devotees. People are living a much more kind of ecological lifestyle, and people are into animal welfare. And it's amazing that a lot of the people that I meet have higher standards than us in terms of many things. Like we were on the beach today, and we met one devotee, actually. Her name's Rachel. I think that was who you were referring to, right, Jasmine, earlier?
Mm-hmm.
So we met this devotee called Rachel, who comes to Atma Lounge, and we met her friend, who was a non-devotee. But her friend was a vegan, and we were speaking about animal welfare, and we were speaking about the farm that we're dealing with, Plurundan Manor Farm. And it's an amazing thing that even people who aren't chanting Hare Krishna, somehow or another, although we are in Kali Yuga and things are getting worse and worse, there is also the golden age is also here. The golden age began with the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago, and that also has an effect on the world, that we see now that many, I mean, everybody knows about yoga, but we'll just speak of yoga now. Kirtan is like famous all over the world. I mean, not everybody knows about it, but many people do. It's like the kind of the new wave of yoga is kirtan. I mean, if you speak to anybody who knows about yoga, I mean, they'll definitely know what kirtan is. And it's very interesting. Like the other day, we were looking for plots of land near here, and I was advised by one person who knows a lot about procuring land that the best way is to find a place that looks disused and then find out whose it is and try and buy it, as opposed to going through estate agents and things like that. So we were driving around, just having a look around, and went to one new place. And I spoke to there was one gentleman in his garden, looked very middle class, like kind of hunting jacket on and a hunting hat. He was with his son in the garden. They were playing ball with the dog. And I just went and spoke to him. I was in Dhoti. And I said, we're Hare Krishnas, we're interested in starting a farming project. Do you know if there's any land around here that's available? I saw there was one massive house, but it looked totally disused. I was asking what's happening with that house. It looked like it had land attached to it. And we started a conversation, and he said that his son is vegan, who is playing ball with in the garden. His daughter is vegetarian and is really into animal welfare. And his wife is a yoga teacher. And it's just amazing. You like go out into the middle of the middle class English countryside these days, and you meet people who are vegans, vegetarians, and yoga practitioners. I mean, that is not a symptom of Kali Yuga. That is not a sign that Kali is taking over the world. So as well as us trying to get some intelligence from Krishna, it also seems that people are being uplifted and benefited somehow or another by Krishna's mercy. I mean, many people say that it's the result of the book distribution that's been going on over the last 50 years, or the Harinams, or the Kirtans that are going on. People are somehow or another being elevated by these things. And it's our duty as devotees to at least not miss the boat, that there is a great potential now. There is like, a great opportunity for us to ride this wave of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy by just trying to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's instructions. And if we just go with the flow and just have faith in what Prabhupada said, then we will be all successful. And if we don't, somebody else will do it, because it's going to happen anyway. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is going to be spread all over the world. And it's just our task. Well, it's not even our task. It's just an intelligent choice to capitalize on that situation, that we have all of the answers that are here in the Bhagavad Gita, all the answers that are here in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's teachings of how people can live a simple, healthy, and happy life. And all we have to do is practice that ourselves and give it to others. And one or the other is not enough. Just like, you may have to help me here, Priya and Peru. Was it, I think it was Sanatana Goswami saying about Haridas Thakur, that you are an acharya because you practice and you preach. You have achar and prachar. I'm not sure if it was Sanatana Goswami saying about Haridas Thakur or the other way around. Do you know? Do you remember?
Shan, maybe. She has a good memory for these things.
I think it was right. You know, Sanatana Goswami said it about Haridas Thakur.
Yeah. So we have to do both. We do our bhajan, we're chanting the holy names, we're following the regulative principles, we're absorbed in Krishna consciousness, absorbed in reading Srila Prabhupada's books, hearing as much as humanly possible. Just have lectures on, just any second that you can hear about Krishna, or just remember Krishna, or when we're performing our activities, then see it as service to Krishna, utilize every single second that we have. That's our own practice, and then we give that to others as well, in whatever way we can. And there's unlimited opportunities. I was speaking to one devotee yesterday, Maharishi Peru. I don't know if any of you know him. He lives near the Mana, and his father passed away from COVID, unfortunately, a few months ago, and Maharishi was also very, very sick. And I was speaking to him yesterday, really the first conversation we've ever had, although we've known each other for many years, but it was a long conversation yesterday. And he was saying, he has a business, and he was talking about the benefits of being self-employed or having your own business. And he was saying that, you know, you can listen to lectures while you work, you can work from home, you can wear a dhoti, you go to your business, it's your business. You know, nobody's going to say, hey, why are you wearing a dhoti? It's like, okay, well, get out of my shop then. If you don't like my business, if you don't like my dhoti, get out of my shop. And he was saying that his father, I can't remember what the industry was that he was working in at that time, but he says he used to go to travel fairs for his work, and he would always go in a dhoti and a kurta. And so there's so many ways in which we can preach, and we shouldn't underestimate that. Also, just wearing devotional clothing. Like, we were in Folkestone last year in summer, just being on the beach with my family, and I was in dhoti, and one lady came up to me and she said, "What are you?" I said, like, "What is it?" And she said, "We saw you walk down that way, and when we saw you, I mean, don't laugh," but she said, I didn't know if you were a man or a woman." And I'm like, I'm wearing a skirt. I was holding the baby, and the baby was strapped on me. I was with my wife, and you know, maybe I'm quite, I don't know, feminine looking, and I'm not like the hairiest or butchest guy you're ever going to see. So she wasn't sure. She came up to me and said, like, "We saw you that way. You looked so, I don't know, kind of something. And when you came back, I just had to come up to you and ask you what it was." So we spoke, and then this was a group of people with one lady kind of in charge, and we spoke. And then she was so interested, we agreed, okay, we'll speak the next day as well. So I came back to Folkestone the next day, and we sat down and spoke all about Krishna consciousness. And then I'm still in contact with her now. She's very interested. She comes to different meetings that we have, and you know, and I wasn't distributing books, I wasn't doing Harinam, I was just wearing a dhoti. And she came up to me and started asking me about Krishna consciousness. So we have to do those two things, have to practice Krishna consciousness, that's the achar, and we have to preach Krishna consciousness, that's the prachar. And if we just do those two things, then we'll be protected, and we'll be giving so much to the world as well. And it's not enough to do one or the other. We need to do both to procure Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. And another very important point about these farm projects, and also about the grihasta ashram, is it's such powerful preaching. Like, I lived in the temple in Soho for, like I said, 7 or 8 years. Every day we would go on book distribution. I don't know how many thousands of times I distributed a book or a flyer, and I said to somebody, we have the temple on Soho Street, come and visit. And how many people came to visit? 0.1%. I don't know how few people came, because a lot of people can't relate to it. They can't relate to a monk. They can't relate to somebody who's given up everything, shaved their head, is living in a temple, has a banana box of possessions, no bank account, and they're just, chanting and dancing. They can't relate to that. But when I was in Hungary, though I was living in New Vajradam, it's 600 acres of beautiful parkland, you could say. It's like living in Regent's Park or something. And you have all of these nice houses, all these nice detached houses, and there's all these saintly looking families with their little babies and their little cute children toddling around. They have their fresh food, their fresh organic food that they're eating, that they've grown themselves. The place where they're going to work is like 2 minutes walk from their house. And there was one lady in New Vajradam. She lived about, well, it was the opposite side of the road, but it was about 10 meters from where she worked. She lived in one house, and the kindergarten or the nursery was just over the road from the house. So she walked for about 5 seconds to get to her place of work. So the devotees, they don't have to commute. They don't have to go on the underground. There's no crime. Devotees in New Vajradam don't take advantage of this, but they don't lock their doors usually in their houses there. There's no conception of getting stabbed when you're walking home or anything like that. So people would see that, people would come to New Vajradam, and they would think, hang on a minute, that person is living a better material life than I am. They've got a nicer house, they've got a nicer place that they're living in. They don't have to worry about their mortgage and their bills and their pension and stuff like that. They don't need to pay for a car. They don't need to worry about schooling for their children because they have a school there and a kindergarten and everything. They don't have to worry about getting old because they're looked at after. They're eating better food than me. It's like, I'm just going to become one of them. It's like a no-brainer, It's like they're happy, they are united, they have friends all around them, and they have a common goal. So when Varnashram is practiced correctly in these farm communities, it's better materially than the material life of materialists. And materialists, when they come and they see that, because they're materialists, they think, oh, that's an intelligent material decision to become a Hare Krishna. And actually it is an intelligent material solution to become a Hare Krishna, because artha comes from dharma. It goes dharma artha kama moksha. That if you perform your pious activities, your religious activities, your spiritual activities, because Krishna is pleased and because Lakshmi is pleased, then they give you everything that you need. And when you're being given everything that you need materially, that's called artha, when you have material wealth, then you realize, actually, it doesn't make me happy. Having a cool car doesn't make me happy. Having a big house, it doesn't make me happy. Having a beautiful wife or whatever it may be, lots of money in the bank account, that thing doesn't make me happy as a soul. And then you come to moksha. Okay, I'm looking for something more. I'm looking for something higher than that. Sorry, I missed out karma. From artha, from wealth, then you can gratify your senses. So if you have money, you can buy a big house. If you have money, you can buy a nice car. But when you get that thing, you realize that doesn't give me the happiness that I'm looking for. So then you look for something higher, and that's moksha. So materialists, they would see in New Vajradam, well, that is really good. And then I've seen it many, many times over the 10 years I was living there. So many people joined the farm. So many people became devotees, much, much more than when I was preaching in Soho, because they could relate to it much more. And they could relate to somebody being married and having children, that I don't have to give up everything. I can give up something. I can give up something. It's like people can relate to that. Yeah, I can give up my job if I'm gonna, be supported financially. I can give up drinking alcohol if I'm going to have, you know, other things that are going to make me high. That was Madhisham. I can give up illicit connection with women if there is a, you know, a bona fide connection with a woman. And that's okay, you know, and Krishna says that, Kama Asmi Bharatarshava in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, yeah, sex life is okay if it's used in his service. Everything is okay if we use it in Krishna's service. So people can relate to that. People can't relate necessarily to the highest degree of renunciation, or if they can, in the beginning, it may not be something that they can maintain throughout their whole lives. So this ashram, these farm projects are so important. And to be honest, I mean, it is selfish to some degree that we want to develop a farm project because, you know, we're grihastas, we need association, we want our children to grow up nicely and everything. But we were living near the manor, up near the manor. There's tons of devotees, there's, you know, protected milk up there, there's Gurukul. My wife, you know, really liked it there. But I feel so sorry for the devotees that don't have that facility. And I feel so sorry for the devotee children who don't have that facility. And it's a crying shame, and it's a tragedy that we know what the solutions are. We have examples of it already. And if we just come together and we pool our resources and we just follow the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, we can create something which will blow the minds of everybody in England. Because people are already looking for this so hard. There's so much interest in living ecologically, you know, ecological housing, treating animals properly, and interest in spiritual life as well, that if we can just, you know, bring these things together, then this can be such a wonderful contribution to the world, to our devoted community, and to our own lives as well. Because what is better than serving our own devoted community and serving the conditioned souls who are out there? And we can see in these times, and there's no better time to give this to the world. There's probably never been a bigger need in the world for peace, for clarity, for answers as to why we're suffering and what is a better way to live. So the timing is perfect, just as the timing was perfect when Srila Prabhupada came to the West in the middle of the 60s. Now, if you just look on front of the newspapers, it's like they're all about, you know, it's all about, well, veganism is a massive thing which is growing in the UK, and the environment as well. Farm projects, they deal with exactly these topics. What to speak of, you know, the pandemic and healthy living in harmony with nature. Like even meditation is overtaking medication now as being prescribed by doctors in the NHS for people, because they're realizing that these holistic solutions are so much better than chemicals. So it's a very exciting time. As Priya Kumpuru is fond of saying, there's a Hare Krishna explosion happening now in Kent. There must be, because Suki Krishna Prabhu has also arrived, and that just shows that Krishna is manifesting amongst us. Happy Krishna and his servants are here, and there are also other devotees coming down to join us in Canterbury soon. So let's all club together. There's so many wonderful devotees in this group, very inspiring devotees, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you. So I didn't speak about what I really planned to speak about here, which is here in front of my laptop, but you can see I'm quite passionate about this farm topic. So anyway, I'll stop here. It's 5:12. If anybody has any questions or comments, then you're welcome to share them, or any corrections. And thank you very much for your attention so far. Please forgive any offenses or right-wing Hare Krishna extremism from my part. Count it as enthusiasm, please. But yeah, if anybody has any comments or questions, then please go ahead.